What's up, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? Where aren't we? Pinterest, Twitter? We're all over the place. We're spread around like peanut butter. Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. We're coming to you live. And we got another one banger in here for you today. Folks, we've been talking to ex-NFL players. We've been talking to people giving you mentorship, mindset. I've been bringing you mindset. Millennials, who aren't we bringing to the table? We got another special guest, folks, here, Mr. Alex Coombs. You say, Coombs? Who's that? You know, well, you might remember my interviews from Mr. Don Coombs.
It's a pleasure to be talking to you, Phil, ancestrylands.com. If you haven't bought real estate yet, you're out of the game. You need to give Phil a call.
And we've got another one, Coombs here, brother to Don Coombs, Mr. Alex Coombs from the New York City area. He runs the program About You NYC. They've been featured on Fox News, CNN. We're bringing a different angle to you today. We're still talking land ownership, folk. We're talking ownership of the mind and ownership of self. Mr. Alex Coombs, how are you doing today, sir?
Phil, great. And thank you for having me on today.
All right, good. So let's jump right into it, folks. If you're listening, you know we're bringing you another gem. You're going to ask, well, how does this relate to me? Take a listen and take a look, folks, all right? This is about mindset. This is about a young man's journey whom I know very well. I've known him in the younger years of my life when he was much younger. He was watching me and some of the things we talked about on other videos. And I didn't even know when we spoke that I was an inspiration to him in some ways, but we're going to not get to that just yet. I want you to learn, look, and listen to his journey, what he talked about. So let's just talk about your program now. What is About You NYC?
Spartans! What is your profession?
So About You, and once again, thank you for having me on today, Phil. It's a pleasure of mine. About You is essentially, we're an outreach program. We serve primarily student athletes, but we do serve general population as well.
Right.
And we provide 3 core services: standardized test prep, academic interventions, physical preparation, or what most people would know as strength and conditioning, and then mentorship.
Wow.
So those 3 things put together kind of allow us to serve as sort of guidance for our young student athletes, our young men and women in the tri-state area.
Okay, let's just bullet point this again. The highlighted points where you concentrate is that these are athletes and student athletes that are currently in school at a certain level, and you all engage them on the educational side, the academic side, the athletic side, and then also with the third component of is what?
Mentorship. And our mentorship kind of expands into just kind of getting our athletes to use sports. That's our term, sports, and not let sports use you. So we get them to use sports as the initial carrot of gaining that scholarship or admissions, but to get them to think of a greater thing and how do I use that opportunity to gain insight into careers such as finance, accounting majors, nursing, where they're you've been blessed with a God-given ability, right? Let's make sure that we're going to school and we're not just there for sports.
Okay, let me ask you a question now. You said use sports, not let sports use you. Can you tell me why was there a need to say that to your student population of the participants in the About You NYC program?
Well, I mean, the biggest issue as it relates to city kids, and this impacts all kids, but the reality is city kids have the least amount of resources. And essentially what winds up happening is that they participate in sports and they only view upward mobility simply from the field perspective, court perspective. And oftentimes what happens with that is that you go through this journey of just viewing life from the sport and not understanding how academics ties into being able to continue within that sport, things such as the NCAA clearinghouse and academic eligibility, SAT, GPA. A lot of our kids really kind of overlook that. And in addition to parents, and ultimately what happens, and we hear it in the past, where you get the athlete who goes to college and either drops out, never really develops real skills in college and post graduation, you might have went in for a major and now you're working in a restaurant, or
Right.
you know, you're not maximizing what the intention of going to university, college is. You're just there to play sport.
Right. I did an interview with an ex NFL football player named Avon Coburn, and he exactly talked about that. Once he got to the league, he made it to the Detroit Lions. He was considered one of the best running backs in West Virginia University history. And when he got to the Detroit Lions, he ended up being on like the practice squad. Someone got injured. Now he's on the roster. He went from less than, 80, 70, 80K to now 300,000 with the possibility of earning more. And he didn't have a plan in place for what to do with all that money, that income, the opportunity. It was like, I made it to the league and then that was it. Maybe he came from the Camden, New Jersey area, still an inner city, not as big as New York City, but the same problem plagued him. And folks, that video is in there where I talk about the ex-NFL player talk success adversity. And I think where you're coming in is a great area that you're getting athletes, students, and also parents to understand that there's more beyond the field, beyond the court, if you will. And I think that's the title of we talked about the other day. This is you're taking success beyond the field, beyond the court, right? And how is that, transmutated? How has that become infectious to the young minds when you're able to kind of get them to look away from the jump shot or the pigskin or whatever sport they're into, to look further, back into the books and beyond?
Oh, wow. I mean, the reality is it's when we pull the veil, so to speak, in terms of understanding what college athletics what it really is and what it stands for 99% of the population that's involved, right? Only less than 1% make it past college.
Right.
So when we began to tie the sort of knots or connect the dots to, hey, you're here for an opportunity post-graduation to join the real world.
Right.
The reality is you're not going to have a pro shot.
Right.
So how do we maximize what this scholarship actually means? And what we began to do is kind of connect them to non-traditional fields. That was our first introduction into informing parents, right? Essentially what would happen traditionally, you would have a scholarship athlete who would go off to school and either major in liberal arts, and this is not an attack on majors, but essentially what the pattern was or the roadmap is, you go to school, you take up a major that doesn't give you an actual hard skill.
Right.
So what happened, and for the simple and sole purpose of just going to school for sports. Right. So this is an issue that is not just a lack of information. This is essentially the setup of college athletics. You are there for that reason, and that reason is to serve the athletics department.
Hold on, Alex. You're about to make a lot of people mad with that statement, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's our mission.
Right. Go ahead.
We spread this sort of gospel, so to speak, to everyone, and why folks really support us is because we're really trying to get folks to understand how important this is. So instead of advising our kids simply on athletics or just the standardized test prep to get to school, no, if you're a young man who's a running back, or you're a Division I point guard, or a Division III field hockey player, let's make sure that you're going into majors such as engineering, field to medicine, finance, as opposed to liberal arts or things such as that lead you to graduating and not really having an opportunity to do anything else. Right. So we kind of made sure we followed, but essentially what we did was connect our athletes with leaders in industry. We lucked up in having a board that is heavy in finance. So that was the first avenue we exploited. How do you become a CPA? How do you get into investment banking? Things that historically communities of color in particular, or low income communities, have no access to. Right. So once we kind of attacked that, I think everyone kind of realized that what we were doing was not really sports. It was using sports so that we can improve communities.
Right. So one thing I mean, we both are college graduates, and I really feel that this is something you might want to hit hard home or understand, folks, is that you're sending your kids to college. You either scholarship or not having a scholarship. A lot of times when you have a gifted athlete or someone that is capable of getting a college scholarship or any kind of financial aid, based upon athletic ability, the sometimes primary focus is just the sport alone. A lot of times I've seen people in my high school, they couldn't go to better colleges because their SAT scores were not up to par. But it seems like you all are teaching other skills on maybe how to study, and in improving their academic proficiency or their ability to be able to become better students so that way they can have a better outcome for success. Is that correct?
Yes, so it's one of our approaches. So we expose them. The first barrier for most kids is just becoming eligible.
Right.
So we attack that through standardized test prep. Giving them guidance along the way in terms of if there's an issue with a particular class. For most kids, it's math.
Right.
We'll figure out how to provide them with services to help them throughout their school year.
Right.
Then the second approach is to expose them early on. Early intervention is always the best.
Right.
Early on to these fields, right? So for example, if you want to get into the field of finance,
pay attention.
Your 9th grade of high school is very important, right? So in order to go down that track and really go into a competitive environment, you need to understand by 9th grade, you need to be in algebra.
Right.
You need to be graduating on track to get into calculus. Because if not, you're going to go into freshman year, you're not going to be able to apply to the School of Finance, let's say at Purdue.
Wow.
It's just not going to happen because it's too competitive.
Right.
And so oftentimes kids and families, and this is where I say take in the family,
Right.
the families in these communities don't have access to this information. So they don't understand, hey, listen, I want to get into STEM, and why I should have probably taken physics and calculus in high school so that I gain opportunity in a particular school. And this is really important when we talk about the top 50, top 100 institutions. A classic example, if you want to work in a big 4 firm, right, a Deloitte, a Millennium, they only pick from about 4 to 5 schools.
Right.
So now, if you're not on track academically, you're not going to have a shot in getting into UPenn's, Wharton School of Business. It's just not going to happen for you. So what does that mean? Post-graduation, you're not going to gain an opportunity at these institutions. And this is how communities that historically are disadvantaged, how they're kept out. It's a combination. It could be a system thing, but for the most part, it's just a lack of information, a lack of insight, and then a roadmap on top of that.
And I just want to thank you for being available to come on, because I don't think people are making this connection right now. I did a video interviewing Mr. Cynic, and it was talking about, does affluency affect your outcomes? For a millennial standpoint. And he was in an area that was a very upper, like an upper class, or upper middle class area. And he talked about exactly what you're talking about in these highly affluent areas, things like finances. And they were electives that allowed students to go much deeper into those, those certain, I wouldn't say degrees, but fields of study. So when a student is coming out of high school, they were already prepared with understanding banking system, understanding, financial literacy. They already had a base understanding. And this was also reinforced at the home when he had parents buying cars for him, putting it in his name, and allowing him to build credit. So again, folks, you wonder why I'm doing these things. It all relates to eventually where you see me now meeting with someone, a landowner, talking with someone who's has a solution to the problem that even Mr. Cynic identified. He didn't know that we were going to do this now. The problem in the metropolitan areas where there's less affluency, and this is also some in suburban neighborhoods, less affluent suburban neighborhoods. So your program is filling in, or a solution That's why I don't always give them in the videos, because I'm going to give you the person that's created a solution, not just offered a solution. He's actually doing the work. That's what we're talking about. People are taking ownership in the community. And Mr. Coombs, Alex Coombs, there's two of them now. He's doing just that.
Flawless.
And I think that you're making a major impact in the New York City area. Let me ask you a question now. Is this just for boys, or, and if it is for both sexes, boys and girls, what age group did you start at? And could you get into a little bit of what brought you there, as far as in starting with that? How did you find a market for yourself?
So our program serves both boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
We start early. We start at 5 years old, and we are in the lives of our student athletes forever. Right. So this is post-graduation. We're involved now. We've done it. So no, we do with our student athletes. We see them throughout their entire journey. Being an About You member truly means you're joining a family. That's how we view it. And so we help them with, once they're graduated, we're helping them gain internships and job placement.
Okay. Let me just go back again. Let me ask this question. So let's say I'm a parent. I actually have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. So so people can understand what you actually do in like a process format. I have my son's 6. I'm going to bring him to you. What starts happening here?
So the first introduction is through our athletics program.
Okay.
Over here, we utilize the Harlem Jets program, where I'm also the president. So we'll meet them in that capacity, and it's a multi-sport program, so it's not just football-based. It's basketball, it's lacrosse,
right.
It's Roman Greco wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the initial meeting. And from that point, we kind of chart your child both physically and academically. So a part of joining our program, one of the requirements is that you have to provide us with weekly attendance, weekly progress reports, so that you maintain eligibility for our athletics. So we took that NCAA model and we took it all the way down to elementary year, right? Because why wait
son,
till
where'd you
ninth grade
find
to kind of
this?
fix habits? Now,
Right.
by then, you're essentially a fully developed person. So the most important years are the elementary years. So we get in there, we provide them, as I said, athletics, and then we follow them through our grade monitoring process. And then we help families with anything that arises, right? Is there a math deficiency?
Right.
Is there a science? Is there an ELA? And then we kind of come together as a community and figure out what is the course of action to helping this young man or woman.
Okay. So what you said an ELA. So let me ask just 2 questions. First question is, you're doing that's at a separate facility. This is not an on-school program, right? It's in conjunction with the school program itself.
Yeah, so we're after school based.
Got it. Okay.
All of our kids are after school. So we kind of serve as essentially a guidance or an extension, an add-on, if you may, to your pre-existing school. Now, it's very important because schools are overwhelmed, right? So I don't want to attack a school system or...
So I told him to take his seat, and here comes this barrage of insults. I mean, some of the words I've never even heard before, and I was just stunned. And I said, well, sit down.
Anything like that. The issue here is that it's a manpower, it's a resource thing. Right. So for example, in New York City, there are over 400 kids to every one guidance counselor, right? It's impossible. Right. It's impossible for a school system to be able to be efficient in that way. So once we identified that problem, the next step was, well, how do we fill in the blanks?
Right.
So that's essentially where we come in. We take pride in filling in the blanks, working together in unison with public schools, private schools, boarding schools, because this is not just something that impacts public school. Right? You'd be surprised that schools that have resources, for example, don't understand the NCAA clearinghouse.
Right.
So that's a deficiency for the private school kid. For the public school kid, it may be a curriculum-based thing. So what we do is we identify what the issue is, and how can we create an action plan to get a young person opportunities.
Yeah, I went to a private high school myself, parochial high school, and definitely the training, while the school is academically excels academically, the sports programs they're not as high up ranked in the same way. So that's where again, you offer to the private school, parochial school parent, there's a benefit there. So this is at an actual facility that you're a brick and mortar location, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and inside that facility, it's designed and set up as, like, give us kind of the layout a little bit, and then we'll.
Yeah.
Okay.
So our facility is set up exactly like a college style sports performance or student athlete center.
Okay.
And the reason for that is so that we expose kids to that environment, which is highly efficient, right? What we did, we're not reinventing the wheel. We reach out to institutions, individuals, and figure out what works best, and then how do we apply that to our community. So our facility has a weight room, has a classroom, has a student lounge area.
Right.
And we kind of give that environment so that kids can kind of view this as a safe haven, as a community center, and making sure that we're attacking every aspect of their student athlete life.
Right. Wow. Okay. So, man, I think about if parents had access to this when I was younger, and it sounds so amazing. In fact, that you have a weight room where you can train, then a classroom component, and then a social component. So parents have all three addressed. And one thing that I like, and I think people are going to miss, is that, for one, he has a facility. Okay, so anyone looking, if this is expanding or this is anywhere else, this is where everybody's like, well, why is the land guy talking about this? Because it all starts with land, the ground underneath, folks. This building was a building before it gets turned down, remodeled, reinvented, but it still deals with land. Land is always the bottom up. And the other part is that, like I did a video with your brother, Don Coombs, and it was like, who's in your circle, the mindset, who are the mentors? The kids are being exposed to, they're not only being exposed to, they're seeing examples of other people who are trying to become successful. Their environment promotes learning, motivation, positivity, and they get to also be exposed to private school, kids in lesser economic, different levels. So they're getting prepared for the world they're going to enter in, and they see things outside of just their neighborhood. They interact with people, different races, different cultures. So again, they don't view the world from that isolated experience, and that's what the future of the children need. They're competing in a global economy, folks, and you're giving them a microverse or a small taste of that's controlled and promotes them being successful in all areas. And I think that's a service to a community that should be in every community, especially less affluent communities or minority communities themselves. That's a wonderful thing. So in these, do you all have tutors in the classroom segments, or how do you all address the educational one? Because I'm like, when I give my kids homework, sometimes they're doing like, multiplying fractions, and I'm like, man, I need to see the example before like, my wife's like, hey, you're smarter than me. I'm like, yo, no, I need to see the example. So sometimes my daughter's teaching me or remind.
I don't know that way. Why would they change math? Math is math. Math is math.
Me or reminding me how to do this math, and I'm like, all right, now I know how to do it. Now I can help you, but I don't know anything. I told her, I was like, I'm gonna fail this test if they had to give it to me, so I can't be mad at you.
It can be overwhelming, especially with the new curriculum style. Common Core, math is different. It's just a different world that you and I both grew up in. And as you said, I think you said it best. It's because we're competing globally.
Right.
It's no longer a national thing now. It's the entire world. And so what we do is, my partner's background's in academics. And so his background with us,
business partner, folks, and not, he's as children.
My business partner,
business partner.
George Manisi.
So you lucky ladies looking at this nice, handsome young man, he's the business partner, folks. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to make sure they know. It's like, all right, man, all right, these guys say they're married and they got kids and stuff, but I don't know, you know what I mean? Go ahead, I'm joking.
Exactly. So, my partner, we've identified we've locked up and have some really talented and dedicated folks who have backgrounds in education. And what we do is essentially all of them have teaching experience in a school setting, they now come to our facility and they apply that same wisdom, knowledge, curriculum setup as if you were in a regular day school.
Wow.
So we surround them with as much academic interventions as possible, from everything from IEP, recognizing issues that might, be beyond just understanding material, and there can be an underlying physiological issue,
Right.
a psychological issue, or just filling them in with potentially, just deficiencies at school curriculum, not having enough resources, manpower.
Right.
We just come in and we figure out what the game plan is. Every student is different. And we make sure that we identify that, and then we create an action plan based off of that.
Right. That's so awesome, because I think a lot of parents, especially over the last 2 years, with the disruption in the world, kids are falling behind. And we as parents, I always tell my kids, the timer's still ticking no matter what. Where you talked about the college level, and I want to get parents and just people, even college students, everyone to understand is that in your colleges, when you see kids from other countries, like I live in an area where a lot of people come from Eastern India, they're coming and they're not taking jobs, they're qualifying for positions, software, IT, they're working in these companies. That's the global economy we're talking about. When the younger kids graduate, they're automating McDonald's where they don't have human service. So no longer can you go at these low entry level jobs. Your degrees now need to be competitive to the migrants that are coming in, the people that are coming in, whether citizenship or non-citizenship. Your children and even you at a later age are eventually going to come up against, are you qualified or do you have enough skills? Alex said the same thing that I've been saying again. The skills. Do you have enough skills to qualify for the emerging or evolving economy in the future? And that's something you're preparing them for. So let me ask you a question, right? We talked before. I want to get into cost, because again, I want to tell people is that, we're looking at the program now. We need to kind of go back. We need to go back to understand, I've never even heard of a program like this outside of when I was first introduced to your program. And I've never even, the imagining of it, you would think it would be so common, but it's not. And how did you get to, what's your origin point? We talked about this the other day. The Combs brothers, we talk offline, and it was an amazing story of how you got to this point and your journey and your costs. And I'm going to tell people all the time, the reason why I want you to focus on this is because this is how nursing is practiced. I've been a nurse for 20 years, and we talk about not just looking at our patient and drug and pills. We look at socioeconomic things. We look at the patient as a whole. And when I talked to Alex, I said, man, this guy, that's what he's doing right now. So, but this didn't start off at about You NYC. It started off somewhere else for you in your journey. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So, like most stories, my story kind of comes from my own personal trials and tribulations. I had the fortune to have an older brother, Don, who was a Division I athlete, and in our area, he was a very good athlete. And we attended the same high school, and he was an all area player. So I got to see the process of recruiting. I got to see official visits, what that means. I got to see him grow up as a student athlete on campus. And, when I say you play a major role, that was an example. All of those experiences kind of mashed together gave me a great vantage point. One example I could give, just when I say that you play a role and not knowing it, one of the young men in our program, Justin Covington, who's a starting running back and one of the all-time greats at Villanova, he had a very unique situation. I fast forward, I was able to coach him in high school, but this was a young man who wanted to go to school and not, go down the route of liberal arts or, sports management, criminal justice, things that kind of like, what can I really do with this? He looked at nursing. And up until that, he was asking folks, and I just so happened to have met someone in my younger years who was not only a collegiate athlete, but in a nursing degree, which for a lot of folks seems very hard, right? Because if you understand even how to register for classes, some universities could care less if you have practice.
Yes.
So if you have practice from 12 to 4 and there's anatomy and physiology 1, well, guess what? We could care less. So you're an athlete.
Right.
So how do you get this done?
Yep.
And I had the fortune of meeting someone and saying, hey, it can be done.
Right.
It can be. I've seen it done. I personally know someone who went down that route. And so this young man was really hesitant on selecting a major. And when we had that conversation, I said, hey, man, I know someone that Division I athlete,
yeah,
all area in their high school, all of that, and
right.
went off, no excuse, you can do this, young man. And,
right.
and he went off and he did. He graduated in 3.5 years, cum laude, team captain, and now he's a nurse in the Philadelphia area.
Wow. So congratulations to that young man.
Yeah. So, but it's those sort of examples that kind of gave me insight into the journey early on. So,
yeah. You know, I'm gonna say you're so right about that school part and actually the sports part. Maybe you didn't know this, but after my sophomore year, when I was actually ranked All-American for kick returns at Wagner College, my nursing program went into full effect, and you have clinicals. Clinicals are you're in the hospital, you're learning your nursing trade, and those are set hours. Football also happens at that same time, and I couldn't do both. And unfortunately, after meeting with coaches, there was nothing I could do. I had to make a choice. Luckily, I was a dual college athlete and I had a track scholarship as well. And the nursing program, her name's Professor, she's actually a dean now, Dean Patricia Tooker, went to bat for me where my scholarship was threatened at the time. And she went to bat for me that I had a track scholarship, and track was the only way I was able to stay at Wagner after leaving the football team. And there were articles at Davis goes AWOL, and no one was talking about the fact that I was going, again, like you said, using the sport for the degree, not the other way around, you know, not just getting a degree, but it was like I went for nursing, which led me to land, which led me to you again. And you know, I'm very happy that this young man decided to stick to the degree, because that's going to get him further than the pigskin can ever could if you're not going to the league. And even then, like, Avon said, it's not a guarantee once you make it. You know, he blew money, wasted on party and everything else. So it's not a guarantee just because you get drafted or you go into the league. I'm going to give it back to you, but I just wanted to share that because, you know, I've been a nurse for 20 years and nursing got me to land. It got me to traveling all around the country, to be working during COVID. And, you know, now I'm back and it's like, wow, that there was no one was going to bat until Professor Tooker. She's a dean at Wagner College now, and she went to bat for me. And I stayed in the nursing program. People in my family were not happy with that because you can't be an All-American ranked top 5 in the nation to Brian Westbrook, who was number 1 at the time from Villanova again. And, you know, again, I'm like, man, I got to be number 1. Sometimes ranked number 2 in the nation in kick returns. And you look like you're promising from the school. No one wants to let an athlete like that go. And I left it all behind and just went to track. I was an average track kid, but I had a scholarship and the degree was more important. So I just wanted to, you know, what he's talking about, again, I've lived it. He's doing it. We're showing people who are working, not talking about it, not yapping about it. We've done this, folks, and we're bringing you value again. Please continue. So you're on the journey. You coach the young man who went to Villanova, went to nursing now, and you're starting to develop this ideal about what is to become about You NYC. And you said cost was a business you developed. Let's get into that a little bit, where you kind of fast forward onto journey, made that connection.
Yeah. So, you know, as I said, some of my trials and tribulations as an athlete, I went off to school, and I noticed, even with a brother who played Division I athletics, just being able to navigate the NCAA and understand that, you know, I went through a ton of things in my college career in order to play ball that failures that kind of now, fast forward, gave me insight into being able to guide parents and players. And so once my career was kind of over, I went right in. My background was exercise physiology. So I went into the strength and conditioning world. And I found myself at Wagner. It was one of my first internships and at Fordham University. At Fordham University, I met one of my mentors, Edward Perlack, who was just trying to understand exactly what I wanted to do with strength and conditioning. And I realized that it was bigger than just the college level. And I give one example. There was a young man on scholarship, and I remember trying to push him in the weight room, and he had a tremendous amount of ability and really trying to push him. And he had such size. I was like, wow, this young man can play past college. And I remember him stopping me and saying, hey, coach, I got the scholarship. I'm here. I don't need to go any further. This is it for me. I want to go off into finance. Fordham being a really good academic school. So he was going into the world of finance, and it dawned on me. I said, wow, what we're doing here, I have to really impact high school kids, because he's right. He did the job. He received the scholarship. He's at a great academic institution. What am I really telling this young man? And I realized that there was more of a need in the high school and younger levels. So once I get into that, I meet another man, a mentor along the journey, and that's Joe DeFranco out in New Jersey. And what I saw at the collegiate level, and then what I saw from his background, him also being an exercise physiology major, but working in the private sector, I saw the sort of work environment that he was creating, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood. And then I realized, okay, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to be able to bring strength and conditioning to city athletes, but do it in a way that is supportive. And not realizing that when you have that 300 pounds on your back, what gets you through that rep is the same stick-to-itiveness that you need to do when you're taking up SAT prep. So I don't want to hear that you have any issues with math, or you have issues not studying for a history exam if I just saw you do 110 gassers. It's the same thing that requires you to be disciplined and focused in that area is the exact same thing that you need to apply in the classroom setting. And that led me to this idea of what are we doing? And what we're really doing is giving kids a knowledge of self. That where the term, knowledge of self through training, cost, that's kind of what gave birth to that. And it was I knew then that I was onto something. I lucked up, having that idea so early on, sort of a first mover opportunity. There was nothing really in our area like it. Once I went deep into it, I partnered with the Harlem Jets program, which is the biggest youth program in the state of New York. Multi-sport program that was preaching academics, preaching multi-sport participation, but there was no one really marrying them completely. So that became a huge opportunity for myself. I had access to over 300 kids, which implies that I had access to over 1,000, members of the Harlem community, South Bronx community. And we from there was guns a-blazing. It became something that families really believed they needed, were yearning for, and just didn't realize that this was something that you needed to start so early.
I really enjoy it. I'm gonna just give you a round of applause right now, because that is freaking awesome. So the thing that I like the most is that what you said about the college student. A lot of people, they get the scholarship, and it's just like Avon said, we're making it to the league. You made it to the league of where you can start that degree and go off into the world. A lot of kids go to college for a sport. They don't really want to do anything after that. So you trying to train to motivate someone to get an extra rep, it's like, I'm going to get the degree. I don't need to go any further in this. I can just maintain and do what I need to do. And then you have the young Kobe Bryants of the world who are looking to go to that next level. But a lot of it's a lot more kids that go to college that are athletes. And then the ones that go to the next one, it's a huge drop off. It's like, whoo, down on a cliff. So you went back to where they're still going up that mountain. Again, folks, again, let's just look at what I got here. So you went to where they're starting down here, and they've got to go all the way up to this is where college is. And now the kids are going down to get a degree, and that's all of that stuff where they're going on the path of life. But they're already in the upper elevation. So this part track here, it's not a lot to traverse when you get a degree and you're going to get a job. That it's just, you got to go up a lot less than you did when you traveled. That's why I have these mountains back here, and you're starting down at the bottom where the journey's the hardest because, like you said, that filtering process between academics and getting a college degree, going to those financial, you want to go in finances, but who's going to hire you making the economic, where you need to benefit economically at a salary if you're not able to compete because your school, your affluency has not given you enough skills and qualifications to get into those higher levels. You can't go to every bank and they're going to pay the same. So you got to think about that. And that's where this program is so monumental in helping that. I wanted to ask you, so you went down to the youth group. What were some of the hurdles when you went down into the younger ages, starting as young as 5? Because you're talking about, inner city kids where, New York is synonymous with just basketball. So you're trying to go and talk about, hey, I want to, interest in your kid playing football. Even when I met your brother, I was like, you're from New York, you got scholarship football. Like, what do you usually it's every other state. We import football players to New York. We don't export them to other places. So, where's that hurdle at when you started branching out into the other sports? And, what are those, what did you have to overcome?
Oh, man, that's a great question. So once again, timing, right? During the time when I was going into all of this,
right,
it was sort of an attack on. It's funny, the state of New York being a basketball-rich state, there was actually some major issues, controversies that were hitting the AAU programs, some of the national programs in our area,
right.
And so what you had was kind of a exodus of parents looking for another outlet. Football wasn't the initial outlet. They looked at baseball,
right.
They looked at, track and field, or the worst thing, and they just stopped participating in athletics altogether. And so I had a theory, and my theory was this: if we can produce such tremendous amounts of talent in terms of basketball technically is the most athletic sport. It requires conditioning, it requires coordination, hand-eye coordination. And we saw this trend of folks like Antonio Gates, who never even played college ball, yet is a Hall of Famer. I applied that theory to our kids. So now if you're the 6'3" point guard, in the world of basketball, you're a dime a dozen.
Right.
But if you go to the football field at 6'3", you're a big time receiver.
Yeah.
You're a legitimate linebacker. You're a legitimate corner.
Right.
And if you're a small forward, 6'7" guy, you're Charles Barkley type who, there's power forward, but you're not a traditional power forward. You put your hand in the ground and now you're a tight end. Now you're a 4-star defensive end. And so I just knew if kids were exposed to football early on in our area, we would have these, tremendous results of kids gaining scholarships. So when I started, there was only in 2009, there was about 6 Division I FBS, formerly known as D1A, college signees in our state, which is terrible, right? Wow. But fast forward in the last year, we've had over 50 plus FBS players. And that's a testament to what happened there. They saw what happened with the Harlem Jets program and our kids who moved away from basketball, kind of looking at football as an opportunity. And, over time, with the Harlem Jets program, for example, we were able to compete nationally in Florida, win a national championship. Kids went off to high school. Now New York, it's no longer a secret, but now you see what's going on with New York City. It is a hotbed of football talent.
Nice. Okay, so hold on. You got to tell people what FBS means.
So, within the NCAA for football, for example, there are multiple divisions.
Right.
You formerly known as Division 1A and 1AA, the highest level. They're now known as FBS and FCS.
Okay.
D2 is still D2. Division 3 is still Division 3.
Got it.
And then you have JUCO, which is junior college.
Right.
And NAIA, which is a subset of, it's its own body, essentially.
Okay.
But those are referring to the divisions. And
Okay.
FBS, formerly Division 1, is the highest level.
Okay, FBS and FCS, which was used to be
FCS
Division
is
1
now
AA.
1AA.
Okay, yeah. So for old heads like myself that have no idea, I'd be like, "You going for what? FBS?" I thought that was a braking system for a second here. Yeah. Okay. You know what? It's funny because man, I met Charles Barkley in the airport, Philadelphia airport. I'm flying to Cali. You know, I think this is still during the, you know, where we're entering in the no mask area. And I just walked up and said, "Hey man, I want to give you flowers." And I shook his hand, you know, big hands. Hand just swallowed my hand up. I felt like a child shaking his hand. You know what I mean? Big guy too, man. I was like, good God. That's my Charles Barkley story. You know, I wanted to take a picture with him, but I just thought it was in poor taste. But man, he big hands, just huge, you know, giant hands. So yeah, I get it. You know, that guy, basketball, as competitive as he was in football, me coming down the field, me trying to tackle him after catching a ball, I'd have to go for the knees. You know, I'm 5'9", lean. So I hear you. That's nice that you're able to bring a different mindset and laterally shift people over to another sport and look at it. Hey, you can slot in right here and have a better opportunity. And man, that's a great value to parents to see their kid. And now you saying, well, look, we have the ability to develop you. And then we also have the ability to give you academic development too as well. So when I look at this, you said you went down to Florida. That means that kids are also getting environmental exposure, different areas. They're meeting other athletes, other mindsets, and there's this circle. I keep seeing this circle your brother and I talked about with the mentorship. You're getting, these kids are getting advantages that they would not have otherwise without your program existing. And what I wanted to ask you too as well is, first of all, let's get to a place where we could talk about, you know, where to find you, where your program is, and let's just talk about some future, you know, ideas of what you have planned for in the future. You now have a program up and running, and you're now looking at Florida, these exposure, new environments. You're able to do more in there. What's the plan in the future? You said you wanted to go back for a second. What did you touch on?
So, you know, it was an amazing feat for us to kind of get past the stigma of, you know, New York City football,
right,
New York as a whole. But for me, it was always a bigger picture, right? So it was realizing that, how do I get kids scholarships? If the barrier initially is finances for most inner city kids,
right,
minorities, I was exploiting that whole idea of what the scholarship really means. So that's what gave birth to the idea of use sports, don't sports use you. We got to kids and said, hey, listen, we're gaining all these scholarships. It's awesome. New York City's getting notoriety,
right? But
what are you majoring in? Because you're not going to go to school and take up liberal arts,
right?
Not in our program. Right. You are going to get a real major. You are going to go into the field of engineering. You're going to go into accounting. You're going to get into something in medicine. We are going to make sure that once you graduate, that you're a productive citizen, and that your obligation is to then go back into the community and reinvest. Because that's the only way you're going to change your circumstances. You have to take ownership of your life.
Right.
And then you have to, you know, reinvest so that you give back to the next group.
Right.
And so that's kind of what gave us an edge. Once again, that first mover, folks were kind of stuck on the scholarship. No, we are talking about what you do with the scholarship. And now we're at the point where it's, what are you doing when you graduate?
Right.
And so, I think that's what gave explosion to our program and created more and more folks wanting to join.
Right. I think I'm gonna say the biggest benefit is that if you look at what's coming out now about college students and what they're majoring in and what they think they're going to make, most of the degrees that are selected by college students, they think they're going to make over to $100,000, and they're not. They're low 50s. Actually, I did a little study, and I think I don't know if I talked to maybe your brother Don Coombs, and I said that only 10% I heard of the American population make over 90,000. So what you all are giving them is high paying professions, which changes economic outcomes when they go to have families, when they go to reinvest back in the communities, because now you have knowledge being brought back that is not within the circular 50,000, 60,000, and now you got to live in an expensive area like New York City. Even if you go to other areas, look at the houses now, right? Look how much real estate has gone up. Your qualifications for these things are going to matter. And he's talking about this in the younger years. So you're not limited to you whatever the school is. You now are being prepped to go to the school by your choice, which is the degree of what you're doing to individualize outcomes. The school system doesn't even do that, you know? So because we're obviously, folks, listen, I just want to let you know, Alex is going to be back. Okay. You're going to see more of the Coombs brother, right? You like a little older, a little younger, you know, that's all you got to ask yourself. Okay. But listen, you got to sign up for his program first, then you can talk to him. Okay. So if anybody's watching this and you do end up talking to Mr. Alex Coombs, just make sure you remember and say, hey, I saw you on the Ancestry Lands YouTube channel. That way he knows that you came directly through this, and maybe he has something in store for you, some extra goodies, things like that you can be a part of. And maybe you'll get a chance to meet me. You know, I'll be at one of his programs, festivals, and then come up, give me a handshake. You know, let's get a picture together, folks. Alex, where can they find you at? Where are you present at? And as far as online social media?
Online social media, you can find us at About You NYC. NYC is not the official name, so we're About You Outreach. So if you find us on our website via the internet, it'll be aboutyououtreach.org.
Okay.
The intention is NYC, About You serves NYC, this area, but we're going to grow. So there'll be an About You Charlotte, there'll be an About You Atlanta, there'll be an About You LA. So we're right now at About You NYC.
Right.
But yeah, you can follow us on Twitter. That's our biggest home base. Instagram, and TikTok as well. As
Nice.
Now we realize that's where the kids are. So
Right.
we have to meet the kids where they are.
Right. So you said About You. Now listen, it's you as in the letter U, not you as in YOU or Detective U from Rush Hour. No, I'm just kidding. But it's
You! Who? You! Who? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
But it's About You as the letter U, NYC, like New York City. So just people know that's the correct one. And we'll put that down below so that way people can see it as it's coming up and you're talking about it. So let me ask this question. You said you're going to be in different areas. And this is why folks never understand how this connects to land. You're obviously wanting to move in different areas. I doubt your plan is always, and here's the thing I understand about land and land ownership. With buying an already established brick and mortar, you now have to be stuck or confined to what that building's size dimensions are, and it doesn't give you freedom of choice. So in connection where you say a guy like me in land ownership, where do we connect that on that? Where do you, obviously you're looking for facilities that you can build ideally from the ground up. And that's where land comes into play, because now, you know, let me just ask you this. If you had the right amount of acreage, what would a facility look like if you had the unlimited budget, the way you wanted to make it?
Oh, wow. A facility would look similar to what, you know, let's say one of your major Division I programs, an Ohio State Student Athlete Center.
Wow.
Where it truly is a center that covers all the basis of a student athlete, from nutrition to academics to career services departments. It would be a very large unit that would house everything from PT to medical services.
Wow.
Everything. It would be a fully encompassing, you know, center that kind of goes beyond just the, you know, academic athletic. It's more of a holistic facility that would have everything. The best example I can give you in our field would be Exos. Exos is a large facility where a ton of the, you know, NFL guys that are prepping for the combine, they'll go off to this facility, and you have PTs, you have nutritionists, dietitians,
Wow.
you have your, you know, just a full out staff that's there to kind of tailor to all of your needs. I want to bring that down to the community level, and that's expand on that. Let's have everything from mental health counseling to, interventions with food, how to grow your own food. Our communities don't understand those sort of things and how important they are. Have one centralized place that kind of attacks all of that. So yeah, it would require a ton of space. So that's why, in order for this to grow and to become a national nonprofit, you really need ownership of land.
Oh wow! So I mean, I'm envisioning it now. We, for all you manifestors out there, we just spoke it into existence. Now I'm looking at something close to a couple, 50 or so acres, and this is, imagine folks having this in your area. You have a large compound that is not reserved for college students or NFL students, where you're, like Avon said, I was injured in my high school career. I actually got injured in my late. I tore a muscle in track season, and I completely tore the muscle. Avon too, you have to go to these specialized doctors that are limited. And if you don't get them, he said if he didn't get that certain doctor, his NFL potential, college potentials, imagine how many high school athletes get an injury and it derails their potential to go to college because of that injury. And then you have other factors like health insurance, these other limiting factors that are based upon your current economic standard, that you cannot get access to these areas that now you're looking at. They would be specializing in rehab. These areas that your nutrition for training would be addressed right down to the individual athlete, where now your physical therapy, even if I imagine this would be a place that, if you were an athlete, maybe high school, and you got injured, you can go there to get physical therapy instead of doing it through your traditional physical therapist. So it would be athletically inclined, whereas you're going to a person who may or may not have played a sport in their life, or maybe have done it years ago, and there's no ongoing training about sport-specific physical therapy or occupational therapy. And well, the list goes on. To me, folks, you're looking at a wave of future changing academics, athletics, and you're not going to find it anywhere else but about You NYC, folks. And I'm honored to have a circle. When people are looking at buying land, they're looking at other things that they connect to. And Mr. Alex Coombs is talking just about that. Folks, we're going to have him back. Alex Coombs, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. I want to have you back we're going to get into a little bit more of how you started, who you are, because I want people to understand that this version of him, I didn't know, okay? This was, when I knew him, he was just Don Coombs' brother, the little bro, little man over there. And now he's something completely different. And then it inspires me that I've even inspired him, my story, my journey, and meeting this kid. I'm like, okay, he's a little brother. Let's go to the club. What are we doing here? You know what I mean? And I met I met Don's father, your father, and I never forget those days, man. It's wonderful times in my younger years. But, Alex, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I want to get to the next time talking a little bit more about who you are, your struggles, your journey, because again, I think what we're going to find out as we keep meeting folks, you're going to see that he's not any different than the person that is watching right now, saying this guy is not like me. He's never been through anything, never been through a struggle. He doesn't know what it's like, and why should I listen to him? He's going to talk about that next time we're here, folks. You're going to get to the real. We're going to get down deep, folks. And for now, go to, you said About You NYC, or About You Outreach.org, correct?
Yes, that's our website. And then on our socials, it's at About You NYC.
At About You. So if you're on social media, IG, you get off the TikTok, Graham, stop looking at booties and go look at About You NYC on the social media, folks. If you're going on the website, go to About You Outreach.org. We'll have that down in the below so people can have it there, and make sure that you let Mr. Coombs know, be inspired by this story and see the videos of what he's been doing. All right, how kids have been benefiting from this. All right, Alex Coombs, thank you so much for coming. Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. We're bringing you ownership. We're bringing you mindset. We're bringing you leadership. We're bringing you so much more. I'm so excited, folks. We're up to like almost 40 something thousand subscribers at this time. My growth. Woohoo! Man, it's great. And I have Alex here. It's not just about me. My world is becoming bigger. The circle's bigger, folks. And we're going to bring you all into it. We're going to offer you more value, more entertainment. I hope I've been entertaining. Alex, I've been entertaining, man. What are you talking
always, man. That's the guy I remember growing up, man.
All right, we're going to have you back, folks. Ancestry Land signing out. Peace.
Are you confused with today's real estate market? With high interest rates and overpriced housing, it can be hard to find something to own at the right price. Available on Amazon, Getting Dollars from Dirt by author Philip H. Davis is a game-changing book that invites you to embark on a thrilling exploration of this often overlooked asset class. This book is your roadmap to unlocking the secrets of vacant land investment. Inside these pages, you will uncover the transformative power of vacant land as a wealth-building tool. Discover how to spot promising properties, assess their true value, and capitalize on market trends. From understanding zoning and permits to leveraging financing strategies, you'll gain the knowledge and confidence to make savvy investment decisions. With each page you turn, you'll gain a deeper understanding of the profound impact your investments can have on the world around you. Getting Dollars from Dirt is not just a guidebook, it's a call to action. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a curious novice, this book will empower you to tap into the immense potential of vacant land and embark on a journey toward financial freedom and a brighter future.